see my voice crack sometimes, and I'm like, how does your voice crack, dude? You're 39 years old. Episode 3, Dakar prototype. If we play this right, this should be the first time that you see this on our chassis table. Should be the first time that you see it with the wheelbase, with the front and rear assemblies intact. Everything is set here. Like, this thing's fixed. It is right where it's supposed to be. Lower floor designed and in here. You know, tire size the same. Everything dialed for fabrication. So this is going to kind of set off the chassis development side of things. So some things to think about. We cut apart our donor car, saved all the good stuff, cleaned that to right where it makes sense to be able to graft a new portion of chassis into these things. And then there's some information that needs to be gathered. How much caster at ride height, you know, how much anti-dive in this thing? What does the rear bulkhead want? Does the rear bulkhead want anti-dive? And then it starts to get even more complex because, you know, now we're dabbling in stuff. I've made this running joke that I haven't had to fuck with CVs my whole life, and I have no intention of starting now. And then it turns into, we build this Dakar prototype, and there's no 4-link or traditional live axle in the rear. It is a rear engine car. It doesn't have an LS or anything basic in the front. It is very class 1 unlimited buggy style. And with that, there's a lot more rules to play by with cycling the suspension in the rear. The front's pretty simple. It's just a center pivot, you know, typical trophy truck class 1 style underpinnings. But when we get to the rear, which we can talk about, figuring out where that gearbox is happy and in relation to CVs and axles, you know, at droop and ride height and compression, that's all stuff. I think we should tackle the powertrain right now because a lot of like what you see down here, there's an ingredient here to make this fit in the car, and it's really primarily based off of the powertrain and the drivetrain. So let's look at that. It's back here. It's ready for mock-up, and it's all pinned together. So we have 2 thoroughbreds in the studio as far as builds, which are just our highest performing, nastiest, wildest creations. Originally the mid-engine all-wheel drive, that's our full-size car we're doing. It's not this. That's gonna run Mason all-wheel drive front portals, Mason front diff, T-case. That is a mid-engine configuration, so that means the engine's reversed and it's behind the back seats with the offset live axle 4-link. That was going to run this version of engine, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the smaller engine and we're going to put a much bigger engine into the all-wheel drive project. This is a fully built underground racing V10, completely all forged bottom, blown apart, taken care of, put back together. This is paired with a set of twin turbos, 1600 horsepower and change. is what we were running out of this thing, or at least what this was producing before we got it. It is, you know, it's a Lamborghini V10. So it's a new thing. We're going to pioneer putting this in an off-road car and see how it does. And, you know, both Ryan and I we're ready to, you know, take it on the chin if we have to and figure out if this works, but we both believe in it. This is a dream setup. Now, what would make this more of a dream setup for me? Now, mind you, the Dakar is a 118-inch wheelbase. It's a short little thing. It's on 37s. It's a rear engine. This is going to be paired with an Albin's 5-speed manual transmission with synchros in it. And that's what this is. It's very strange because I am not a IRS independent rear suspension guy. Like, having this kind of setup is just very foreign to me. When things are foreign for me, at least for like fabrication and building and doing things right, I am not in the position to take risks where I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So with this, we get people on board. We talk to every single person we need to, you know, between building a mid plate for this, between what this thing's going to be happy with and power and doing, and also setup and what angles we need. And just like, I just take every route I can to get help. But what this is going to be is rear engine. The hatch will be closing here. This whole thing fits with a closed hatch. And then you have your Albin's 5-speed manual, that is a very strong gearbox, and it's going to be a clutch car. So this thing will be able to bang through gears. You'll be able to shift it, and you'll be able to clutch drop the thing. And like, I have every reason to think that, and you know, we'll see if this comes to fruition, but I have every reason to think that you're going to be able to get onto the freeway and be in third gear and kick the clutch, and it's going to wheelie like to 100 miles an hour on the freeway. We'll see. But performance-wise, we wanted to kind of dial this in for UAE, Dubai, big sand dunes, not just Glamis, not just desert. This whole Dakar prototype is not being marketed for consumption just in the U.S. This is a world-renowned vehicle, and the performance it's going to show us is going to be something crazy. I don't even know, like, and that's why I told the guys, like, I don't know what this is going to do, because it's got a lot of different variables here that are extreme, but I know it's going to be incredible. And having like a manual transmission, like a nice manual off-road transmission mated to this thing, that sounds this is going to make twin turbo Lambo V10. I don't know, but I know. So let's move on to the packaging on the inside, because I just kind of wanted to have you guys see the dimensions and the proportions on this thing. Wanted to really stress on this thing is, if you're going to build an SUV like the Dakar, make sure the back hatch is usable when it closes. And for Ryan and I both, like, that was something, whatever we got to do, if we have to move the wheelbase forward in the rear just to make sure the back hatch closes, we're doing that, and it is what it is. And we'll make it up, you know, in the exterior panels, and we'll make up the wheel opening and adjust it like that. But the setup we have right now, it has to go like this. We took the general measurement. The engine completely fits in here. The axles where they want to be, and you know, there's some stuff where when this thing droops out, the axles and the CVs go forward, and then that's the recipe for where the center line wants to be on where they come out of the gearbox. So we're not going to plant that thing precisely yet. We just needed to get it enough where we knew we had room, and then we'll dial that thing in. But right now we need the square and the flatness of the chassis table to build the floors and locate the body to the chassis. And then once this is solid enough, which is almost there, we'll be able to take this thing off the chassis table, let this thing droop where it needs to based off of our shock stuff, and then we can place the engine in here and final its mounting. Because really where we're at is We can build the front wall out, but anything back here, it's going to be, the way this is going to be, it's not just going to be like a shell on this. We're going to incorporate like the chassis all the way into the D-pillars and down, and like it's going to, if this doesn't have a body on it, it's still going to look like a Dakar prototype. It's not going to look like a buggy or something. It's not just going to be like a B-pillar tube and then it shoots down. It won't be half-assed like that. This whole thing will be one big kind of shell. So with that, we have to have the engine and the turbos and the gearbox all set in here. Something else to consider is the fuel. Looking at stuff like a tin car, a class 1 car, a lot of those cars have their fuel cell under the seats, and they kind of have a little area for the shifter linkage, like a tunnel going through. There are some off-the-shelf things, and I don't feel like that's going to work right now. If it does, great, but I don't think so. And I think what we're going to end up having to do is building a very custom fuel cell that lives in the car. And you know, the other things that's going to come with that, like an issue, is going to be how do we get that fuel cell out? If we already have a fixed lower floor, we can't have something drop from the bottom. So we have to build accordingly to where we can plant a fuel cell into this thing and it can come in and out. How often does it need to come in and out? Hardly ever, but they do have to come out for service at some point or another. So we're going to hold on this. We're going to build the front wall out. We can kind of talk about that. We can talk about the lower floor right now, but really this portion, until you see engine and gearbox in here, then we're not going to be laying any tubes back here. So like we talked about before in the previous episodes, this is all Craig Hall designed with Tony Vanillo. They built 12 of these cars. Some of them they upgraded to bigger shocks and they made modifications to run bigger shocks. But there was not a lot of good stuff to save, and especially for building this thing custom into the Range Rover, we just needed the front and rear assemblies. With that, the one ugly duckling here is these upper arms. They are built to be interchangeable, but they are definitely hard on the eyes. They don't match our design language or our styling for our brand. So, see, my voice cracks sometimes, and I'm like, how does your voice crack, dude? You're 39 years old. Anyways, these are not like, this car deserves beautiful billet uppers, just like we've done on other stuff. The Exotic has some really nice, organically shaped, like Terminator style uppers, and we'll do the same thing on the front portion here. And then we're also going to redo the rear trailing arms. The trailing arms will have to be like a multi-piece, like there'll be some box plate work, and then there'll be like some bulkhead captures, and we'll stuff like billet chunks into there that'll go to the pivots or something. So there'll be a couple pieces of aluminum and then like a boxed rear section back there with a bunch of bolts in it. Something to think about is also like caster numbers for setup on this thing. I talked to 5 different people, including Craig Hall, Jamie Campbell, like a lot of people that are familiar with buggies and class 1 cars, and figured out what's optimal to set this thing up at. That's where we're at. Same with the compression on this. Like the mock-up shocks are in here were just for sizing. They're not the right length. They're just setting in here to see what fits or what doesn't. And then the bump though on this is where we're gonna live. So there's roughly 3 inches of ground clearance from the bottom of the rockers on this thing to the bottom of the tire. So with some tire compression, you'll for sure just be laying frame all the time. The tube layout. So stuff like this is something that requires time for me. On all the stuff that we build in the studio, there's not a lot that is not overlooked by me. I've created something here where we are maybe undisputed with design and style and how we make things look functionally. And with that, a lot of time it's me like kind of giving concepts and ideas to the guys, and then they move forward and they execute the shit out of them to the highest level. With big tube layouts like this one's something I have to also incorporate, like flex and load bearing areas, and think about what the chassis is going to do and what's going to happen next and where it really matters to get wins. And this layout here is exactly what that is. This is kind of like a drawing I would do going front to rear. That's something I send to Colin so he knows. The lines there that have extra line weight are the primaries, which are these tubes. The perimeter here, what I want to talk about with this is wall thickness. Just like Vivian, I like to use 2-inch tubing, 2-inch OD, outside diameter. And I think that it looks like strong. It represents like a gnarly, like rigid structure. But the wins you get is you apply different wall thickness into the tubing. And with that, like the outer perimeter here is 120. This is 120, just your 1-2. And then your secondary X that goes through here is 095. And then these guys are 065. And you can kind of tell, that's 3 different hits, right? Like you can do that with a lot of chassis, and you can figure out like indicators of where there's thinner wall tubing. But that's how we built Vivian. And to go back to that, Vivian is 5,800 pounds wet. That's pretty light for something that is with a steel cab and it's built to full trophy truck spec. All the shock package, the engine, everything. It's got a gnarly cage in it. It's got tons of structure. So we applied the weight reduction ratio to everything, and not just the tubing, but also the plate work. Like, it's very easy to use 1/8 inch 125 plate, 3/16 plate, and it's so easy to weld, and you can put a bunch of passes into it and it'll take the heat. But it's an abuse of weight and material, and you can really get a lot of wins by using different thickness stuff per application. And that's how we're going to build this whole car. So like, we have a ton of tubing for this thing, and a lot of it is not 120 wall. We'll just do the mains, and then everything in this car will be 095 and 065. So it'll look gnarly, but it'll still be light, and it's weird how that adds up. You think, well, it can't make that much of a difference, and it really does. And I think a matter of 1,000 pounds maybe. So this is our initial layout. Where we go from here, we have some body capture stuff that I'll cover in detail with you guys right now. But what we'll end up doing is we'll end up tying in the rest of the bulkhead, and we'll build right up to the windshield line. That's like our initial hit here first. It kind of looks like this is a dead intersection, like these stringer tubes want to keep going, but that's because the planes are going to change here, and this thing will start to grow vertically. The rear hatch, like we talked about, that's no man's land until we take this off, and I think that's going to be a thing. Like, moving this thing on and off the table, not a big deal, because we've already squared what we need to, and we already have the fixturing done. So if we wanted to unbolt this from the chassis table, we could unbolt it, we could put all the tires and wheels on, we could put it outside, we can look at it, assess things, and get a feeling for it, because there's no better feeling than putting the car outside and looking at it from far away in different angles. It does stuff for you and for the vehicle. So we'll be doing that several times. Once we figure out where that rear axle line needs to be with the gearbox, then it's game on. We have all our seats. We have some special seats. We'll cover that in a later episode. But really, it's getting all the vitals placed in here, and then this whole entire thing is going to turn into just what you think as far as a chassis. And not just like a little race car chassis with a shell on it. It'll look like a Dakar prototype, shell or no shell. So here's the deal. This thing is aluminum body, just like a lot of newer vehicles. And we're building steel stuff on the inside, so there has to be a mounting provision. We did a lot of that with Vivian already, and it was kind of backwards. Like, she had a steel cab and we used aluminum panels on the inside, and we still wanted to make the cab come off. So we're very familiar with finding success in running, you know, a mounting system that's removable or at least bolted and riveted on. And you can see the start of that right now. This is all 1/8 inch plate that's been cut. It's aluminum, 1/8 inch aluminum. It's not angle, it's actually plate. It's cut, it's shaped, and it's set up with clecos right now, but there's 3/16 holes, and they are staggered. We just have the clecos in the top or the outside line. But what'll happen is this will all get riveted from the bottom, and that's just one area of the car, and this spans from your A pillar all the way back to your C pillar, and that secures that whole lower door sill. Now there's 4 pickup points on that go to the chassis with all chromoly tabs, and then there's nut plates on the back there. So this whole program, what you got to think about is there's probably going to be 8 to 10 more locations of that same style thing. Pillars, you know, rear hatch area, front windshield area. There'll be like a plethora of that, and really it's just like an airplane. If you ever look into like an airframe, all that stuff is riveted together. It's not welded together or anything like that. So you can really find structure and strength in running rivets and removable hardware, and that's what we're going to do. It's not so the body can come on and off all the time. It's just so we can find a way to fix aluminum to steel. All right, this is episode 3. Like I said, things to look forward to. All the front wall up to the windshield line. Figuring out our engine and gearbox placement, and also taking this thing off. We'll have to clearance some of the wheel openings just to figure out what's going on there, because that's not going to cut it. And probably get this thing outside. So I'll check back with you guys when we need to. Like, comment, subscribe.